The lights are off and away they go.
Extremely loose. He's managed to hold on and they get
He missed the complete that. He's crazy
As I
stuff.
said, Freitas is on the grass on the infield floor. He slides through, he tags Richard Eck.
With most drivers thankful to leave Kansas behind, the team strapped in for the roller coaster hills of Laguna Seca. Dan Rash sat on pole while Kimmo Suominen began beside him in second. In the ST class, Dexter Castro was fastest in qualifying, with James Stevenson filling out the front row. Before the green even fell, Ed Verras spun and hit the wall while exiting the carousel, starting himself out on the wrong foot. At the green, all was copacetic while the cars felt their way through the first lap. But the Lagoon's infamous difficulty showed up early when German Afanador caused Eric Smith to check up at the final turn. Caught unawares, Patrick Bieri tagged Smith and sent the American to the back of the pack. Bieri's heavy damage would handicap him for the remainder of the race. Alexis Molina was the next victim, discovering the dangers of rainy curve on lap 7. Finally, Steve Brown narrowly escaped disaster when giving it too much gas out of the corkscrew. In ST, João Freitas set out to make up for his qualifying problems, and an incredible display went from last to second by lap 7. The Portuguese driver slowly reeled in Castro, who was leading, and began to put the pressure on. The 49 Motorsports driver buckled on lap 13 and sailed off the track at turn 6, handing over the lead to Freitas. Matthew Reinold was not so lucky to avoid the barriers and made a mess of his sheet metal at the bottom of the hill. Meanwhile, Castro made short work of chasing down Stevenson in second, but while heading into 5, the New Englander misjudged the Aussie's braking distance and in a repeat of last season's race, rear-ended James. At this point, many drivers began to make their stops. Rash and Suominen resumed as they were, but had dropped Todd Honzarenko by a dozen seconds or so. Eric Smith continued to make progress after his early trouble, getting all the way to 6 with a half an hour to go. Smith stalked behind Russell Clayson, who decided he couldn't wait around for traffic and went 3 wide into turn 10. Freitas took to the dirt for safety and Jarrett Lawson lost control, but no contact was made. Finally, Eric's patience paid off on lap 35 when Cannonball put a wheel off and his V-Apex Mustang skidded off the track. Though Rash and Suominen were similar on pace most of the season, the Frito-Made Mustang proved too much for the Finn on this day as Dan took his 4th win of the season. Kimmo came home second and wrapped up the GS Championship in only his rookie year. Behind him, Honzarenko pulled in a quiet 3rd. In ST, even though Castro continued to push his white and green machine as hard as he could, James Stevenson began to close the gap. On lap 49, the red and green machine started to attack. But in a bit of ironic justice, Dexter overdrove the car into 5 and allowed James by on the very corner he had pushed him off earlier in the race. Meanwhile, ahead of it all, Freitas was pushing at 10/10 the entire way. It eventually bit him with a spin out of turn 9 on lap 53, but his lead was so insurmountable that he still retained over a minute gap to the next car at the checkered flag. It was Freitas' first win in the series, and it was an absolute blowout. Stevenson placed second, but had already taken the ST Championship at Kansas. Because Zhao had lapped the 4th place car, Dexter Castro still managed to finish 3rd despite not completing his final lap as he ran out of fuel. Both championships are decided, but the season finale still awaits in the Green Hills of New England. A simple layout belies a deceivingly difficult and punishing track as the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series gets ready to take on Lime Rock Park. Welcome to Lime Rock Park, home of the final round in the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series, and we're bringing it to you live on the Global SimRacing channel. I'm Joe Peak. With me in the booth is the voice of the MX-5's Richard Losper. Welcome, Richard.
Hi, Joe. Hi, viewers. Great to be here as usual. Looking for an exciting race today, hopefully.
Also with me is our resident Mustang whisperer, Mr. Kevin Brown. Glad you're here for the finale, Kevin.
Thanks, Joe. Always glad to be back at Lime Rock Park.
And as always, behind the scenes is our director, Giancarlo Lenzi, making sure you don't miss a second of the action on the track. Well, Lime Rock Park, Richard, is kind of known as a bit of a short track version to road course racing, it seems.
Yeah, Joe. This track for these cars that are racing here today is going to be a handful. It's a narrow track. It is short as well, so there's not a lot of time for the Mustang drivers to get away. It's pretty tight in places as well. Not a lot of straightaways for the Mustangs to use their power. So, you know, it's going to be a challenge, particularly for the Mustangs. You got 1.5 miles, only 7 corners, very, very short. A 90-minute race. It's going to be a tough one, I think, and we shall see how it all pans out, Joe.
Well, one thing that has panned out is the championship, and that is in both classes. Kevin, what happened in GS?
Well, our resident rookie Finn, Kimmo Suominen, showed up this season and took it home last race with 356 points. He will not be racing today, but the battle for second is up with Dan Rash sitting on 319 and Patrick Bieri sitting on 306, just another 13 points behind Dan. So it's still something to fight for today.
So keep your eyes peeled for those two. Dan is currently sitting pretty high in the qualifying, which is going on right now. And ST, Richard, it's also kind of been done and dusted.
Well, that's right. And we can tell you that Stefan Overgaard, he cleaned up and has the fastest time in qualifying, 59.177. But as regards the championship, Joe, James Stevenson he's done it already. He's got 355 points. He's way ahead of anyone else. The very Stefan Overgaard that I just mentioned is 98 points back, so no chance for him to catch up and challenge for first place. So James Stevenson will go around. It does not matter where he comes. The surprise, I guess we could say, of this season has been Ed Voras, who is currently in third place on 231 points. That's 124 points back. So I would say unless something drastic happens to Stefan, he would not be able to catch Stefan either. And a couple of other guys that we should mention have done extremely well this season, Joe. Tom Eckline, back on 225 points. He could challenge Ed Voras for that third place. So third place is what we'll be looking at today. And Matthew Reinhold is not out of it as well. He's on 220, which is just 5 points behind Eckline, who's 6 points behind Ed Voras. So there is a little bit of interest here in the last podium spot, I would imagine, Joe.
Yeah, quite a bit, and those guys are really going to want that because, as we keep saying, they're not drivers who are typically up there, so they're probably going to be hungry to be able to say, I finished third in the championship, because that's an accomplishment being worth proud of in this series, I have to say. Well, we do have a lap around here with Kevin Brown behind the wheel, so we're going to pull that up and show you what it's like from inside of one of these cars on this hectic track. All right, let's take a lap around Lime Rock Park in the Mustang of Kevin Brown. Coming down the front straightaway, turn 1 is going to be your best opportunity for a pass here. Really the only hard braking zone around this course. Now, 1 and 2 is basically the same corner, but around 2 you're going to hit this late apex here, use the banking to your advantage, and get the car to the right as soon as you can for the 6 is pretty straightforward. Don't get too overambitious. Coming on this front straightaway, you'll have a chance to get by someone of the other class or let them by. But that's a lap around Lime Rock Park. I have to admit, Kevin, I know this is one of your favorites, but it's definitely not one of mine. It's so difficult driving around here, as you could see, and I think that's going to be illustrated today, especially with the traffic, I have to imagine.
Yeah, it gets it gets very difficult when there's a lot of traffic going on, especially after a few laps in the Mustangs when they kind of baked off the front tires a little bit. And it's not too difficult for the fast MX-5s to be carrying as much entry speed as the Mustangs. So overtaking with that traffic at this very technical track can be very difficult at times.
And even sometimes it can go in the reverse of what you would expect, I would imagine, Richard, because the times are so close. Some of the fast MX-5s might be having problems with the slow Mustangs.
Well, I can tell you, Joe, that at the moment, the fastest MX5, which is Stefan Overgaard, on a 59.177, he is a half a second only, and that's in qualifying trim, behind the slowest Mustang, which is James Alex Brown on 58.7. So not a lot in it. And as Kevin mentioned, once the tires on the Mustangs go off, we could well see a mixture of both classes racing for position, but not racing for position, if you know what I mean. So it's going to be very tough. It's going to be, yeah, I just wonder whether these guys can all keep it together for 90 minutes.
Yeah, and on that point, as far as keeping it together and keeping it out of each other, Richard, one of our favorite topics as of recent is the return of Dexter Castro and his sort of clashes, shall we say, between himself and Stevenson.
Yes, and they will be at it again today, Joe. We've got James Stevenson in second place currently in the qualifying. In fact, the qualifying is wrapped up for ST. But Dexter Castro is right behind him, and we watched during qualifying the two of them trading places a little bit during qualifying. So it adds enormous interest to the race, and I'm looking forward to that battle. And hopefully Stefan Overgaard can stay out of it and have a good race today, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, he's got one win this season, but there's been opportunities in past seasons where he probably could have had more if not for some bad luck or, honestly, some of his own mistakes as well. One of the guys that I want to watch in GS, though, Kevin, is Patrick Bieri. Now, this guy, we've all kind of known coming in with his how he's running the official iRacing Mustang series, that he's got the speed, he's got the chops. But what's impressed me is his strike rate on the podium. 5 out of 10 so far this season, and that's why he's threatening Dan right now, I'd say.
You are right, Joe. He is very consistent, very smooth, and it's been a pleasure to watch him race this season. He has admitted that Lime Rock is not one of his strengths. I think he's just hoping to get anything he can, especially since I know this race is going to be finishing up about 1 a.m. his time. So he's in for a long haul, especially with an early morning of work today, following up. But you're right. We've seen some great racing from Patrick. He absolutely surprised us a little bit, I think, at the Targa, Virginia last week, where he ran very, very well, very fast throughout the race. Had a fantastic run, but I think we're going to see a lot of great things from him, from Pierre, if he shows up next season.
And maybe that can be a threat to fellow newcomer Kimo Suominen as well. Now, you touched on something that I think we should mention with that kind of being a feature of digital racing, shall we say, sim racing. Is Richard, and I'm sure you experience this a lot being in Australia, is the time zones mean that some of these guys are essentially racing at all hours of the night.
Joe, now you on a topic that is very close to my heart. Just for the viewers' interest, I have to get up to do these broadcasts, particularly for the Blondies broadcast at 3 a.m. in the morning. And right now, it is a good time for me because it's 9 a.m. in the morning and I'm wide awake. But sometimes I'm doing these broadcasts when I'm half asleep, Joe.
And just imagine trying to drive like that for our viewers. It's if you've ever done a road trip that goes overnight, it's sort of like that, but times 10 because you have to focus all the more. We're getting really close to qualifying being wrapped up here. We're just letting things play themselves out so the guys don't snipe one another and we call the wrong order. But as they finish that up, I just want to get you guys' picks for each class. Kevin?
Well, I think I'm going to have to go with the boring pick and go with Dan Rash. We know that he's pretty consistent when he's out in front, and I think he's looking that he's going to be out in front all day today. The rest of the guys around him either struggle at Lime Rock or haven't been around in a while, so I think this is probably going to be Rash's day.
Richard, what are your thoughts, since it doesn't seem like James has this one nearly as wrapped up?
Well, I've just been thinking about that whilst Kevin was talking, and my thought process is at the moment, James Stevenson has nothing to lose, but he is a very competitive guy. He's not just going to, cruise around. I think he will still be looking for the win. However, there is a, a dark horse here, shall we say, today, and that's Stefan Overgaard. I've got my fingers crossed for him that he has a great race and actually wins this thing. And I think if he puts it all together, he can do it. So I'm going with Stefan Overgaard, Joe.
I think that'd be a very popular win if that managed to happen. As I mentioned earlier, just there's a lot of races that he probably could have and should have won. It looks like the laps are wrapping up as the checkers are out on qualifying. Everyone should have their hot laps done. So why don't we go through the order here, and we'll start with ST just in case we've got any lingering GS cars. On the pole we have actually we won't start with ST. Let's go through GS, it looks like. I'm sorry, that was a mistake on my part. Dan Rash is on pole in the GS, and it looks like Eric Smith is starting beside him on the front row. Patrick Bieri starts the second row in third. Then we've got JD Baumgartner starting in fourth, and Steve Brown in fifth. Kevin?
In sixth place will be Russell Clayson. Seventh, German Afanador. Eighth, Nicholas Bailey. Ninth, James Alex Brown. 10th, Alexis Molina. 11th will be Denny Locke. And Fernando Fireball may or may not take the grid in 12th place.
Meanwhile, in ST, Stefan Overgaard, as we mentioned before, does have the pole. James Stevenson is starting in second. Then we've got Dexter Castro in third. Fourth is Josh Loitz. And then in fifth, it's William Randleman. Richard?
Yes, and in sixth place, Philip Carpenter. Seventh is David Wammond. And in eighth place, our third place in the championship is Ed Voras. Tom Eckline, who's in for that challenge for third place, is just next door or behind Ed Voras. Yao Freitas has joined the session. It remains to be seen whether he takes the grid. Jared Lawson did not put in a qualifying time as well. He's next. And last but not least, Joe, Wes Eric, the league organizer. I doubt very much whether he'll be racing, but we'll see.
Well, it looks like we're in for a treat because João Freitas is on the grid starting in third to last. And we saw some fireworks from him last week, Richard.
Absolutely. This is a very exciting driver, very fast, has the goods to challenge the top drivers in James Stevenson and Stefan Overgaard. But he does have to work his way past some slower traffic first, Joe.
And it looks like Wes Eric actually is on the grid as well, so he is going to be duking it out. Fernando Fireball is not on the grid. It looks like the pace car is just starting to take off now, so they're going to do their pace lap, and you'll get a feeling for just how short this track is. I know we've been watching for a bit, but as they go around, you'll see just the sort of short distance that these cars have to navigate for a single lap, under a minute in both classes if you're fast in the ST cars. But one of the other stories that we should possibly touch on real quick, and I'm a bit disappointed actually, he is here. Josh Loitz, he is sitting fourth in ST right now, Richard. He's become something of a specialist around this track, at least from what we've seen.
Yes, he is. And in fourth place, that puts him right up there. He's on 59.9. So the difference between himself and Stefan Overgaard is about 0.8 of a second. It remains to be seen how he goes, but he's just behind Dexter Castro, who's really fast. So if he can get in his draft and stay there, we might see some good things from him. But it does look, Joe, as if we're going to get a very exciting race. We've got some good drivers in there, both classes. So I'm looking forward for a great one.
Myself as well. This race tends to throw up some odd results just because of its difficulty. I mean, those walls are so close. There's very little runoff all the way around the track. And I see that the pace car is actually coming down diving turn right now. So we are getting ready to go green as he heads towards the pit entrance. Let's see when he dives off here as Dan Rash is going to lead him away. There goes the pace car. Dan Rash now has the field under control. There's the green right there. They take off, and it looks like Dan did not get a good start. Eric Smith is coming up the outside. Patrick Bieri's got a good run, but he's got nowhere to go. He's a little boxed in. JD Baumgartner has to check up, and it looks like Dan has first solidly wrapped up into the first turn. What's ST like, Richard?
Well, ST has just started off, and Joshua Loitz has immediately gone to the middle and is challenging right now for first place and takes it away from Stefan Overgaard. Stefan Overgaard still in there with Dexter Castro just behind them, and James Stevenson has backed off to allow the melee in front of him to carry on. He's got nothing to lose by taking a slow start, so Joshua Lloyd leads this thing right at the moment, Joe.
That was unbelievable. I don't think we've ever seen someone go all the way from fourth to first, especially at Lime Rock, which is so difficult to pass at. That was incredibly opportunistic. That could pay dividends with how hard it is to pass around here, Richard.
Absolutely. He started off and went straight through the middle of them, and I guess the others were taken by surprise, and the only thing they could do was let him through. So now he leads this thing, and we did say he's a bit of a specialist, so it's going to be fun watching the others try and catch him and pass him once again.
Yeah, and it looks like he's holding off Stefan Overgaard fairly decently at this moment. And actually, it looks like James Stevenson lost out the most out of that group, going from second to fourth. So, like you said, he's playing it very patiently at the moment. Dexter Castro doing fairly well, holding on right onto the back of Stefan Overgaard.
I'm telling you straight up that James Stevenson is doing the wise thing at the moment. Early laps in a 90-minute race, you don't want to be fighting with anybody this early on. Sitting in fourth place, watching the fastest guys, the slower guys possibly in front of him, that's where you want to be at this stage of the race, Joe.
Yes, and I have to wonder, what do the tires do around this place, especially with there being so many right-hand turns? Do the lefts get eaten up on this new tire model, Richard, or is it not affect the MX-5s much?
No, it won't affect them that much. The tires at this point in time are still warming up, so it'll take them another lap or two before they start to hit their best times. So at this stage, you know, being cautious is the right thing in my opinion. Joshua Lloyd was not cautious at all in the start of the race, but it's paid off for him. He's leading, so that's great to see.
Well, let's hop over to GS and see what's going on over there, because we haven't checked in a while. Kevin, what's the news?
News is Eric Smith is looking racy on Patrick Berry, poked his nose in a couple of times in the last couple of laps. We had a position change for fifth where J.D. Baumgartner was able to outbrake German of Fanador into turn one, made that nice and easy. I think German kind of helped let him go, realizing it was only lap two of the race. Outside of that, Nicholas Bailey had for some reason, I think he missed a shift or something on the straight, but he was very slow on the front straight. He's now running last in the GS field.
Yeah, I was keeping half an eye on Eric, and he's still pretty close to Patrick at the moment as they come through turn four there onto the no-name straight. In fact, he's got a decent run. Well, no, he didn't get a decent run. He's starting to drop back just a little bit. But where does it seem like Eric's strong at the moment?
Yeah, I'm not real sure. It looks like, to be honest, it looks like Patrick's maybe a little slow through turn two and turn three, the left-hander, and that Eric Smith is a little quicker into turn one. But I think these guys are still kind of shaking it out while the tires kind of get up to pressure and get some grip in them. And then I think we'll see them go a little bit as Eric Smith goes four off going onto the straight. So that's not really going to help his time out too well there. But he'll gather it up here and continue on, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's something of a risky game, putting tires off into the dirt. You can kind of get away with it sometimes, but like you said, it definitely doesn't help your time. Steve Brown, in the meantime, is capitalizing on that mistake, and he's closed up on the back of Eric.
And I want to quickly point out, Dan Rash is already onto the ST class as he's lapping Wes Eric right now.
I don't think we expected cars to be lapped that quickly. We're only on lap 5. We're a mere 5 minutes into this race, so this is it's getting complicated already as Patrick Berry tries to make his way around, and you'll see right now illustrated just how tough it is to try and work your way through traffic around here, as Wes is very much caught out, and these other drivers have to check up and just kind of tiptoe their way through turn 6 there on West Bend. But now that they're past, they're on their way, and it looks like Eric Smith has made up that ground, and he's right back up on Patrick once again.
Yeah, Patrick Berry had a bad exit out of West Bend, got thrown off a little bit too much by trying to lap Wes Eric, and really kind of messed up his exit speed, which you carry all the way down through diving turn and onto the main straight. So it's an important corner for the Mustangs, and it didn't help him, but Eric Smith was not yet able to capitalize, and that's probably a little smart from Eric Smith right now. You know, it's still we're only on lap 6, so there's a lot of race left.
Well, it looks like it's just something of a waiting game for these second, third, and fourth place drivers at the moment because they're all kind of holding in line while Dan Rash is checking out. And so we'll kind of keep half an eye on this, but let's hop back to ST and see what's going on. Richard, I see that Josh is still holding on to that lead.
Yes, I am pleased to say that he's proving what we said earlier on, that he's very good at this track. However, guys, I want to change the car to number 346, João Freitas, in that green and red car. Now, you will notice straight away that he has some damage in the rear. So, obviously, in coming through the traffic, he had a car hit him in the back. And it doesn't seem to have affected his speed, but he has lost, he's trying to make up time on the guys in front of him. At the moment, he's got in his sights William Randleman, who's got about half of the straightaway in front of him, but it does look like he's catching them, and we'll keep an eye on him because I am pretty sure that he will be up with the leaders in the next few laps, Joe. But going back to the front there, Josh Lloyd's still doing a great job. He's being followed pretty closely by Stefan Overgaard. Dexter Castro, who's kept it nice and clean so far, in a very good third place. And James Stevenson right up there with them, but still keeping that watching brief and just having a look and seeing what's going on in front of him without trying to make any challenges, Joe.
Well, in the meantime, Alexis Molina has spun on the uphill in turn 5, just tapped the inside wall, so thankfully he didn't seem to do too much damage, but he was going quite slowly and is actually in the pits right now. So his day is not starting off the way he wanted to. Let's hop back to that ST battle, though, Richard.
Absolutely, and I'm with Dexter Castro at the moment as they approach turn number 1. He closes right up on the back of Stefan Overgaard, who had to check up a little bit to avoid hitting Joshua Lloyd. They were coming in that fast into turn 1. So these three, whilst they still single file at the moment, one has the feeling that a challenge could come at any point now that the tires are nice and warm. The car is performing at its peak right now. These are the best laps you'll get out of this car. So let's see how we proceed. Just behind Dexter Castro, James Stevenson, still keeping that little gap in front of him. I really think he's doing that deliberately. I don't think he's struggling for pace in trying to keep up with these guys. The big news is that João Freitas in car number 346 is starting to close up on William Randleman, and I imagine that he will be challenging in the next lap or so for that 5th place there, Joe.
Yeah, and we'll jump back to that in a second, but we've got news on the GS front, Kevin.
There has been all kinds of action going on. Eric Smith got around Patrick Berry for 2nd place. That was held up by Wes Eric, or excuse me, not Wes Eric, but they were held up by an ST car. German Afanador got around J.D. Baumgartner once again, who was held up bad by an ST car. And then last lap by J.D. Baumgartner, Russell Clayson, German Afanador, and David Whammond went 4 wide on the main straight. These guys are getting hot and heavy, mixing it up with the ST field right now.
So traffic already a strategic point in this race with guys trying to use picks all over the place, it sounds like. And I'm watching Patrick Bieri and Eric Smith. They're still very close together, so this thing is not over yet between them.
Not between them, but right now Dan Rash is loving that little battle they're having because he has a 4-second lead on these guys, so he wants them to keep fighting right now. I think Patrick Berry and Eric Smith and Steve Brown need to just kind of work together and try and use traffic in the track to catch up to Dan as quickly as they can.
Yeah, and that's something that I was actually thinking about a little bit earlier is because of that difficulty to pass, how difficult is that to keep your patience when you feel like you can go faster than the guy in front of you, Kevin?
Well, it is difficult, but, you know, I think at this track you have to realize that the traffic's going to affect your position battle, and the only thing you can do is just let it happen. And if you're the guy getting held up, just let the car, you know, who's behind you go by. Otherwise, if you're in the situation like Eric and Patrick and Steve are right now where they're trying to hunt down Dan Rash, if you try and fight each other for, you know, pretty much a lost cause position, then it's not going to help you out, and you're just going to only go backwards overall. So even though it's difficult in this little bull arena of a track, you have to stay focused and you have to stay patient and just work with what's been given to you.
Hey guys, can I jump in here? Stefan Overgaard had a big moment on the the front straight, went very wide and nearly lost it, but managed to gather it up here. However, has lost positions. The big mover is João Freitas. If you look at him now, he's behind James Stevenson. He's past Stefan Overgaard. He is the fastest guy on the track at this point in time.
And JD Baumgartner just passed German Afanador under braking for West Bend. Fantastic move he made right there.
Wow, everyone is being extremely opportunistic, especially this early in the race. It seems like guys are grasping at straws to try and get positions, so they think that they might not come later on from what it sounds like. And I see that JD has both V Apex cars right behind him, and that is German Afanador and Russell Clayson. Russell being in the purple-roofed car of those two. I know they look very similar. But those two have actually caught my attention throughout this season, Kevin. It seems like these guys have been kind of up there, but being only in 4th and 5th in the championship points battle, I feel like there was more on the table for them.
Yeah, I agree with you, Joe. I'm not really sure what the story's been with them. We know that both German and Russell are quick drivers. They can hustle the Mustang around quite well, and we've seen them closer to the front in seasons past. So I'm not really sure why they've been off this season, but they definitely have, I think. And then, unfortunately, they've actually crashed each other quite a few times this season. So this has not been the best season for the EV Apex boys, but maybe they can figure it out for this race and next season.
Wonder if we have a bit of a Senna versus Prost thing going on inside the team there. But right now, German has the measure of Russell Clayson, and that is for 6th and 7th between those two, with JD leading them in 5th. But there's not really much going on over there. So let's hop back to ST and see what's happening, because that's been an active class there, Richard.
Yes, sir. And I'm just with William Randleman in the blue car at the moment. He has been holding up Alexis Molina for a solid lap. Alexis was just not able to get by him and had to wait all the way around till he came back onto the front straight in order to make the pass. What that has done is it's given Stefan Overgaard the opportunity to close right up on William Randleman. So there'll be a battle here for the 6th place, I imagine. Out in front, though, it's still Joshua Lloyd's, but now we do have Dexter Castro right on his bumper, Joe. So things are hotting up a little bit at the front of ST.
Oh, and I just noticed that James Stevenson had a moment or something, because João Freitas just blew on by him coming down the no-name straight. So João Freitas has now moved himself up into 3rd in class already. We're only 13 laps in.
Absolutely, and we mentioned that João Freitas is the big mover. As we see a move by Dexter Castro on the outside. Can he make that stick? They're going too wide. They did touch right there, Joe, but Dexter falls back into line. That was quite scary there going into the Big Bend. Sorry, that was going into turn 1. So that's given João Freitas the opportunity to close up even further. So lots of action happening right here at Lime Rock Park in ST class.
And this is probably what João is exactly praying for right now, for those two to keep battling it out and slowing each other up around here, because he can get right into the mix. And we've seen this trick from him before, going from last or nearly last up to 1st. So I wouldn't put it past him to try and get into the lead and take a 2nd win in a row in this series. And I believe this is only his 3rd race. Is that right, Richard?
That is correct. We saw him at Laguna Seca absolutely blast the opposition from last place, as we see Joshua Lloyd's going very defensive there, and now João Freitas right up on the back of Dexter Castro. This is the fastest guy at the moment on the track right here, Joe, so I expect him to be challenging Castro in this lap maybe, or certainly by the next lap, but he is right up with them. And Joshua Lloyd's is struggling because he is going defensive. Dexter Castro is all over the back of him right now.
Yeah, last time by, Freitas did a 58.9, which is faster, I believe, than all the Yeah, that's That's 0.2 faster than all the qualifying pace that the ST class had. So he is flying at the moment. And 1, 2, 3, we have all the podium right now in the moment. ST guys right together as we see Josh Lloyd's going a bit wide coming out at 6, and that allowed Dexter Castro to close. Now he has a big moment coming out of the final turn, and they're going to go 3 wide with Josh Lloyd's going all the way on the inside. Dexter Castro is in the middle. It looks like Freitas is going to clear them both by the time they get to turn 1. Who is going to try and take it? Freitas is into the lead, and Dexter is not giving up yet. He's still on the outside of Lloyd's, holding onto it. He's going to have the inside coming into the only left-hander, Richard.
Yes, and Lloyd's does back off a little bit because pretty dangerous trying to get into the big bend there. But Freitas, he just blew by them whilst they were battling with each other. Took them all by surprise on the outside. They went 3 wide there, and he is leading this thing at this point in time, Joe.
That was just an incredibly gutsy move from Freitas. I think that is the sign of the things to come. I really hope he is here next season to challenge Stevenson and give us a battle up front.
And you know what? Stevenson, through all of that, has managed to catch up with these guys or make up some time on them, because when you're battling, you are going to lose time as you have to check up a little bit to be aware of what's going around you. So James Stevenson not out of it at all. But João Freitas, the guy is incredible. That was a brave, very opportunistic, but a very great move from a master driver, Joe.
Yeah, I was going to say, brave but well played. Sometimes the gutsy moves work out if you just, plan it just right, and I think he did. He waited for his moment and took it. In the meantime, he does have lap traffic already with David Wammen coming in front of him.
That's right. In fact, they'll all have to negotiate past David Wammen, who's not the speediest of drivers. Very safe driver, but doesn't have a lot of speed. So let's see if he moves out the way. João Freitas coming up on the back of him right now as they go into the diving turn. João Freitas is really good through here. Watch how he makes up that time. Gets on the back of him, tries to go to the outside. Could be dangerous. No. David Wammen moves over, and now the others come through. Castro David Wammen stays wide. Good on you, David. He breaks a little bit early. Castro just shoots to the inside. That was very, 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 very risky as well, Joe.
Yeah, I think he saw that Freitas was starting to check out, and he knew he cannot give up that time at this moment. Poor David Wammen has been doing well to try and stay out of everybody's way. He's a typical backmarker, so he's got the experience as he lets these top 4 go by now. But yeah, Dexter is I think, eager to not let go of Freitas at this point because he knows he's got the run on him at this point.
Well, I don't know, Joe. João Freitas looks like he is busy checking out right now. He is the fastest guy on this track, no doubt about it. Dexter Castro will have his hands full just trying to stay with him, and that could mean that Dexter Castro may well make some mistakes along the way. João is not going to be caught easily. Meanwhile, Joshua Lloyd's behind Dexter Castro is struggling to keep up a little bit now as they come up to Ed Voras. More lap traffic, Joe.
Yeah, and I'm kind of keeping a half an eye on that, half an eye on what's going on in GS, because things were hot for a minute, but they've started to cool down because Eric Smith had Patrick Berry very close behind him, but he's started to lose ground. So it seems like that battle is kind of waxing and waning at certain points, Kevin.
Yeah, you said it. Patrick Berry was actually a little bit over a second behind Eric Smith and then closed up to within just a couple of car lengths. Steve Brown was almost 2 seconds behind that battle. He's also closed up within a couple of car lengths. And then the battle between German Afanador and J.D. Baumgartner's also been kind of doing the same thing, waxing and waning, as you said. But what I'm trying to figure out right now is Russell Clayson is in pit lane, and it looks like he just exited out of the race. I don't know why. I didn't see any damage on the car. He seemed to be running okay. He was kind of slowly getting dropped by J.D. Baumgartner and German Afanador in that battle for 5th. So I don't know what happened there.
Guys, action time once again here in ST. Sorry, guys, at the front, we just saw João Freitas get a little bit loose at the entry to turn 1. Both Dexter Castro and Joshua Lloyd passed him in that maneuver. He was held up a little by Ed Voras, who was trying to stay out of the way. But
and there's contact behind them. I'm sorry, there's contact between Ed Voras and Stefan Overgaard, and I don't believe that was for position, so Stefan has been knocked down a number of places as he gets going once again.
And that was right in front of our GS leader, Dan Rash, too.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Well, I said what I was trying to say. It's just right in front of our GS leader, Dan Rash. So I'm sure he wasn't happy to see this action going on.
Okay, so Stefan Overgaard, looks like he's lost a bit of time there. Bearing in mind that the GS guys were bearing down. There's an accident. We have an accident. There's Randleman into the wall. And who's that with him? David Whammond. So they are both...
Yellow's out.
Yeah, that was a... caution is out, and that was a bad accident between those two, and David Whammond has just got the bad end of the stick this race. As you can see on the replay, that was on the uphill turn 5 between those cars. Very tough to try and go side by side through there. And once again, Kevin, Dan Rash was right by that when it unfolded.
Yeah, and I'm trying to see if maybe Dan had a part in that. Maybe he kicked it off, but I can't tell you it right now, so I don't want to say that he did. But it was definitely a little bit closer for all three of those parties, and I think any one of them really wanted. And unfortunately, that bit two of them really badly.
Yeah, I don't think I saw any contact from what I saw on the replay. So I think he was just trying to give those guys space and pass when they gave him time, because he had gotten himself a fairly handy lead, so he didn't really need to push the issue. So pace car does appear to be out, and they are going to get picked up by that any moment now. We're going to go to break as they continue on around. We'll be back in a moment after the music. Welcome back to Lime Rock Park. We are in the midst of our first caution of the day, hopefully the only caution of the day, as cars are circulating and getting sorted out. Pit stops have already taken place, which surprised some of us because it's very early, but Richard seems to think that they can make it the rest of the way.
Yes, I do. Let's just talk about what happened here just before the break there. So we had this accident involving David Wammond and William Randleman. We have to say that William Randleman did not race very smartly there. He did not leave much room for David Wammond going up through the uphill section of the course there, and it ended in tragedy for David. Now, straight away, everybody jumped into the pits. And most of them took fuel, no tires. But an interesting development just occurred, Joe, with Dexter Castro going back into the pits and taking 2 tires on the left side. So not sure what that was all about.
Sorry to interrupt, but we've got the green flag waving as the pace car is in. Dan Rash is leading them away. He's got Eric Smith pulling up right behind him. And it looks like Steve Brown had a decent run. Actually, it's German Afanador who's got the best one, and he's going around the outside of J.D. Baumgartner.
Well, guys, in ST, it's been a crazy start. Joshua Lloyds was leading, but for some reason, he has just been overtaken by a whole bunch of guys. I just watched him going very slowly down the front straight, so he's lost a whole bunch of positions right there, as he is now behind Tom Eckline and Jarrett Lawson, some of the guys, the slower guys in this field. So don't know what happened there.
I think there was a miscommunication from the marshals because there was supposed to be, excuse me, another lap of caution, and unfortunately they did not wave it off, I believe, and a bunch of cars were letting lap traffic by, and the green just came out, and unfortunately for those guys, they were just caught the bad end of a miscommunication, it seems. So as they come by, I'm trying to figure out who exactly is in the lead of this class.
Well, Joshua Lloyds will cross the line right now. We'll see where he slots in. It looks to me like Jarrett Lawson currently is leading this race, which is very unusual. And yeah, I was caught by surprise as well, Joe. I definitely thought there was another lap. That's why I was commenting on some of the occurrences of the race. And then you called that it was green, so it took me by surprise.
Myself as well. I wasn't sure. I was kind of keeping an eye on the pace car. Wondered if they had waved it off or not. But yeah, Jarrett Lawson kind of inherited a good situation for himself, bad for everybody else. Josh Lloyds is back up into second. Dexter Castro is in third. There was a bunch of black flags that people got that were waved off because they were just erroneously given. But things are all mixed up. In fact, Philip Carpenter was scored in fourth last time by.
Yeah, so the actual situation is Jarrett Lawson, as you say, leading the race. A very welcome thing for him as he goes to the inside now, trying to overtake Randleman. So there is a battle going on there, but it's not with Randleman because he's way down. But still, he is on the outside now. Joshua Lloyd's trying to get through. Randleman, we know, does not give space, and Lloyd's loses out. He's off track at the moment, and another Randleman mistake there, I believe, Joe.
Yeah, I definitely have to put that one on him because he was a lapped car at this point. He really should have been giving way to those guys despite the mistake. And now Philip Carpenter has gone off the track trying to avoid Lloyds. Lloyds thankfully didn't hit anything, and he's back going once again. But man, chaos reigns here today right now, Richard.
Yeah, and not very smart racing from particularly William Randleman at this point in time. The leaders are coming by. You're a lapped car. Why battle? Anyway, we've got what we've got. Dexter Castro is now coming up behind Joshua Lloyds once again. Behind William Randleman. So let's see what happens there. The big winner, I feel, as we see Yao Freitas going past James Stevenson, is James Stevenson is almost as if he's saying, okay, you guys race, I'll just sit back here and watch.
Yeah, I kind of don't blame him with how things are going, especially up front. It's very hard racing. Oh, and Jarrett Lawson gives up the lead.
Lawson off track there. Randleman involved once again. So I don't know, Joe. I'm very unhappy with William Randleman right now.
That was complete driver error from Lawson. He just overcorrected coming through the left-hander, and It was gone. That's gut wrenching when it happens, because as soon as you feel the car go, you're like, why did I do that? But
And
poor Jarrett.
now
Go ahead.
we now have Randleman slowing up and letting the faster guys through finally. I apologize to William if I implicated him in that Jarrett Lawson incident. I was pretty far away from the action there. So let's have a quick look now. Jarrett Lawson's out of it. Dexter Castro is leading the race now. Yao Freitas is right up behind him. So that's where we are in ST with James Stevenson in third place, Joe.
I have to imagine we're going to see some fireworks here, because both of these guys are hard chargers. Freitas obviously willing to make some risky moves, and Dexter Castro is certainly not foreign to car contact.
No. He is. Yao Freitas is not afraid to mix it, no matter what corner we're on. We've seen that, and neither is Dexter. So we'll keep an eye on that. Perhaps we should see for the moment what's happening in GS. We haven't heard from Kevin for a while.
The news right here is Patrick Berry was the only Mustang to take a stop and get tires, and he has been very quick lately. He is just about the fastest car on the track, and he's trying to navigate around German Afanador, who's not giving it up easily, which is obviously in German Afanador's rights right there. But Patrick Berry's having a heck of a time. He's on those fresh tires. He's got nice sticky rubber on the front tires, and he just can't seem to make it work. And he's probably kicking himself a little bit right now. But everybody else is a little bit strung out, kind of in single file. Everybody's about a second away from each other, except for this battle between Berry and Afanador.
And I have to wonder, though, if it stays green for the rest of the race, did he possibly pull a good trick here? Because if everybody else has to stop under green, even though he'll be on older tires, he'll lose a lot less time on track, I have to imagine.
Well, guys, let me say that, make this observation. Dexter Castro is in the #1 place in ST at the moment. So he did 2 pit stops during that caution. He took some left side tires, and he filled up probably twice. So he is in a really, really good position, in my opinion, for lasting out the rest of this race, as we
and there's
see
a change for the lead.
Tackle him and takes the lead away from him. He lets him go by, didn't fight that too hard, and that's probably a wise move. He's got a good-looking car at the moment, so I like the looks of Dexter Castro at the moment.
Yeah, I have to say that was a bit gracious of him, because he didn't seem to defend or anything. Maybe he's starting to learn to race just a little bit more strategically. And yeah, because we were talking a bit about that over the break as we watched everyone pit, Richard, that it seemed very early to me from my memory of how far these cars could go on gas. So maybe Dexter Castro, because he ran out, I think it was season 2, ran out of fuel on the last lap. Maybe he learned his lesson and is trying to stretch it as far as he can go.
Yeah, look, it was very early. I mean, they were on lap 22 about 10 laps ago. A lot of those laps were caution laps, though. They can go time-wise about 55 minutes or so on a tank of gas here. So it's still going to be touch and go, in my opinion. But Dexter Castro, from his 2 pit stops, probably in the best position of all. We also know that everyone else pretty much has pitted, so it's going to be interesting as the closing laps come down.
Well, let's hop back over to GS, because I'm watching a really good battle as Bieri is trying to find his way past Afanador, Kevin.
Yeah, he is absolutely trying to find his way past the Afanador. He's been very fast out of that corner right there, diving turn, the last corner leading onto the main straight, and he just hasn't been able to quite make a move, but I think he might have it here as, nope, Afanador goes very deep under brakes, but maybe it's too much. Afanador's very far on the outside. Looks like Bieri's going to take it. Yep, Bieri's cleared him into turn 2, so that's Patrick Berry's all there right there, and I'm sure that's all down to fresher tires right there.
So good move, a very patient move, because he had been stalking behind Afanador for a number of laps now. We're on lap 34 for those cars, just over a half an hour in, 35 minutes into this race. And it looks like he's got the pace as he's been just weaving through this traffic, as you mentioned earlier. And right now he's got J.D. Baumgartner, who he's slowly reeling in.
Yeah, again, everybody else in the GS field, with the exception of Nicholas Bailey and Patrick Bieri, they have not stopped. So Bieri has got the advantage right now with the fresher tires. So he absolutely needs to take advantage of this right now and move forward. But even still, it's been long enough since that pit stop that maybe he doesn't have super great tires right now. So he could already be struggling for grip.
And he ran a 58.3 last time by. Let me see what the leaders are doing. Dan Rash ran a 59.3. So, I mean, some of that could have been draft, but he's actually running faster pace than the leaders, it looks like.
Well, there was an ST car that Dan did have to get around, so there has definitely been traffic, as I see another ST car very slow on No Name Straight.
And it looks like Philip Carpenter was part of that, and I think it was Tom Eckline who was off. Let me go back and see exactly what happened there. Maybe we can get a replay. It looks like Eckline was complete driver error. He's by himself. And where is Philip Carpenter? Trying to see what exactly happened to Philip Carpenter here. It looks like the exact same thing in the same corner. One car after another just made driver error in the same spot. So it looks like that left-hander is proving difficult, Richard.
Yeah, it's the whole track's difficult with the number of cars that you've got. 20-odd cars, and also the fact that you have multi-class. They're all mixed up at the moment. But I can tell you, folks, that João Freitas at this point is leading this race. He is got a very, very useful break on Dexter Castro. He came up on him, passed him, which we called a little earlier, and right now seems to be holding his own in first place. Dexter Castro in second. Struggling to keep up with João at the moment. And James Stevenson still doing his thing in third place. He has not had any damage to his car. I want to go back to Stefan Overgaard now in the blue AMS ST car. He is got some damage, but I've had a good look at his car. He seems to be going okay. Remains to be seen whether he can catch up to Joshua Lloyd's in front of him and to the leaders, because right now the unfortunate Stefan Overgaard has done it again and been in the wars, Joe, and has lost out from a very, very handy first place to start with.
And there was another car off the track there for a moment as I saw Freitas go by. It's Tom Eckline once again. He's off the track, stopped, and he's starting to pull back on, so it looks like he's able to continue, so that should not be a caution. And he's actually able to pull it right into the pits right now, conveniently at the pit entrance. I did notice that Patrick Bieri is continuing to make progress, and he got by J.D. Baumgartner early, Kevin.
Yeah, and I'm still not entirely sure what happened there. I've watched the replay about 20 times. JD was actually on the brakes on the exit of turn 2 and seems to have let Patrick Bieri by. I'm not entirely sure why he did that. It's a position battle. He should have gone for it as far as I'm concerned. But the net result is that Bieri did get around JD Baumgartner, and off he's going. It sounds like JD's actually pitting now. So maybe he just didn't want to deal with a battle when he knew he was going to stop soon.
Possibly, and he knew he was on old tires. Well, maybe he noticed that Patrick had pitted, so he kind of figured there was, like you said, there's just no point in fighting. There has to be something to said of knowing when to give up the battle in racing. I'm looking at the times yet again. Patrick Bieri 58.1 last time by. The next car up 59.3. That, of course, some of that could have been lap traffic, but Steve Brown is the next on Patrick's list to check off.
Yeah, that, though, is about a 2.5-second gap, and Steve's a pretty quick driver, so it's going to take a few extra laps for that to happen. I do want to point out, noticed Dan Rash has a fair amount of damage on the front of his car. Not sure entirely where he picked that up, but we have to admit that's not an entirely uncommon sight for him to be wearing some damage on the front of his car. But he's only about 0.8 seconds in front of second place Eric Smith, so Eric is having a much better run on Dan with the old tires than when they were both on fresh tires, and Dan was able to get away so quickly. So this is looking a lot better for Eric Smith right now than it was at the start of this race.
I'm wondering if Eric possibly was just a little bit kinder on his tires, maybe, especially with the fact that Dan Rash checked out so early.
Could be, but remember, he actually had to get around Patrick Bieri in those first couple of laps, and he had that battle with Patrick and Steve Brown going on for quite a bit. So I don't think he was super conservative on his tires to start the race off.
Well, as they continue around, Eric is trying to hunt him down, but he's not close enough to make anything happen. So we're going to hop back to ST and see if there's any good battles going on back there, Richard.
Yeah, well, just a quick update. Yao Freida's busy checking out right here. He's got damage on his car, but that's nothing unusual. We always see Yao with some damage. But he's really, really, really fast, and he's getting away from Dexter Castro in second place right now. Third place is Joshua Lloyd's a long way back, and James Stevenson even further back. So these guys are losing out to the top two. And Stefan Overgaard is the only guy making moves at the moment as he tries to go through some slower traffic. But really, at this point in time, single file, not a lot of action. So back to you, Joe.
And I'm checking to see because I thought I saw another accident. It looks like Ed Verras had a moment coming out of the final diving turn. Once again, just losing the car, oversteering, and thankfully stayed away from the wall, but he decided he'd had enough of that and pulled himself into the pits. Not exactly sure. It looks like he was taking tires, so might be repairing damage, might just be taking a late pit stop. Can't remember if he stopped earlier on. But yeah, it surprises me that Josh Lloyd is a whole 10 seconds back from Dexter already. And then James Stevenson, he must have made a mistake because he's actually a lap down from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I think a lot of it had to do with the way the caution played out there, Joe. A lot of these guys lost out quite significantly on that caution because nobody knew what was going on. And Joshua Lloyd was one of those. I did think that he made a mistake early on after the caution, after the restart, I should say, because a whole bunch of guys passed him. So he's battling now to stay, well, he's not battling to stay in third place, but he's certainly battling to catch up to the leaders, Dexter Castro, and Yao Freitas is checked out. So I think that right now, James Stevenson is the big loser at the moment. As you said, he's a lap down, so he's got to fight. But there could be another caution a bit later on, and he might be able to catch up if he gets a wave around.
You absolutely can't discount them around here. Jarrett Lawson, in the meantime, has ducked into the pits and actually exited out of the car, so I'm not sure what happened with him. Wonder if he had some contact with the wall somewhere along the line.
Well, could be. We saw him off track a couple of times, and one was when he made a big mistake, so he might be calling it a day and saying, well, this is not my race, it's not happening, so I'm going to check right out and get out of it. But at the moment, he's out of the car, as you say, Joe.
Yeah, and it's been a long race and an even longer season, so some of these guys might have just been a bit weary, and if they've got nothing to fight for, they're kind of asking themselves, what's the point to continue on here if I'm just having a bad race? But let's actually have Freitas, from what I'm understanding, getting the information that he's catching Nicholas Bailey.
Not surprising. This guy is super fast around here. We've seen that in the Blondie series as well, with him winning races or at least challenging for position there. So at the moment, Yao Freitas is behind Nicholas Bailey. He is going to pass him very, very easily. And now he's coming up on the back of Ed Verras, who is a number of laps down, at least one lap. Oh, he's 4 laps down at the moment. He comes up to him into turn 1. Ed Verras graciously allows him to pass. This man is on a mission, Joe.
Meanwhile, bad news for, I believe it was Eric Smith, who lost a position to Steve Brown because he caught a spinning Philip Carpenter, and it looks like Eric might be struggling around some of these corners. He went very wide coming through 6 there, Kevin.
Yeah, you're right. I was trying to figure out a couple other things going on, but Eric's got some significant heavy damage on the right front. I wouldn't be surprised if his right suspension is messed up, mangled up pretty bad. So that's really unfortunate for him. He is having a solid run and a quick moment, and that could be the end of his race. Not entirely sure yet. We got to see what he's able to fix in pit lanes.
And here is where we're going to see possibly some interesting strategies start to play themselves out, because a lot of GS cars seem to be coming into the pits at the moment, including Steve Brown along with Eric Smith. Dan Rash continues on out, but where is Patrick Bieri? Has he made up spots from some of these guys?
Well, it's a little tough to tell right now. Bieri did come in a second time to pit road, and I have no idea why, to be honest. Maybe it was just to top up in case it was a full green. I see Eric Smith is back out, but the net result right now is that the ST car, Joao Freitas, is running 4th overall in this race.
So, like we said, the lap times are very close, and it's going to get all mixed up, and it's going to get a little bit crazy. That's just kind of a feature around here at Lime Rock Park. And sounds like that Dan Rash is in the pits.
Yes, he is in pits, getting topped up. Going to no doubt get 4 tires and be back out.
So that is going to hand over the lead. Actually, I'm trying to figure out exactly what's going on. I'm sorry if we are a bit confusing at the moment because it's confusing enough down here. Let's see. German Afanador is also in the pits. James Alec Brown is continuing on out, and I think that should actually give him the lead overall.
He does have currently the overall lead. Joao Freitas is 2nd overall, so James just has to cross the start-finish, and he'll have technically led the lap, and maybe for the first time he'll have led a lap in this series.
Yeah, I can't recall if he's led one or not. I know we had some mix-ups with other people doing alternate strategies at other courses. Hopefully he stays out. It'd be good to see some different guys get to lead a lap, but if he doesn't stay out, I'm wondering if we're going to see an ST car lead a lap for the first time.
That would not surprise me. I'm watching Joao Freitas. This man is insane. The way he's taking on this track and just making it his own, Joe. It's just incredible to watch, and a pleasure to watch this man just take this track by the scruff of the neck and do with it whatever he wants. Look at him catch up to, I believe that's Philip Carpenter in front of him. Yes, it is. His car's got damaged, and look how fast he's going. So this is the man, 2nd overall in this race at the moment. You know what, the best thing I can think of to happen right now is another caution, so we can get everything closed up again and we can start having a race, because at the moment everything is strung up. Joao Freitas makes short work of passing Philip Carpenter. Philip Carpenter did not even have to slow down. He just had to do his normal thing, and Joao Freitas just blew by. So not a lot of action, but really pleasurable to watch, Joe.
And something that's significant now that pit stops are starting to cycle through, I see that Patrick Bieri was 4 seconds ahead of Dan Rash last time by. And since both of them have done their stops, that means effectively Patrick has track position at the moment.
Yes, Patrick Bieri does have track position over Dan Rash, but Dan Rash has been closing pretty quick, about a second a lap faster than Patrick Bieri right now. So Bieri did not take tires the last time he stopped, about 5 laps ago, I think it was. But his laps are probably, I think it's about 15 or 20 laps older than Dan Rash's right now, so that's a pretty significant handicap. So this one's probably going to be done and dusted pretty quick. But I'm very stoked right now for James Alex Brown. He's just turning out some laps in the front of the field. He's now officially led 2 laps, and he's having a great run, although he is disturbingly being caught by the ST car, Joao Freitas. So this could be kind of a landmark moment in the Conti Series.
An ST car overtaking the GS leader overall would definitely be something of an interesting development. Let's see if James goes into the pits this time by. It looks like he's continuing to stay out, so he's obviously doing a long first run. In the meantime, Patrick Bieri and Dan, it looks like you're right that Dan is definitely closing that ground bit by bit. So it's going to be a pressure cooker for him, because we're only just past halfway through.
Joao Freitas off track in the turn 1. He overcooked it going in there. He's into the wall. He's got extra damage on the right-hand side now to go with the damage at the back. That has ruined his chances, Joe.
And that hands over the ST lead to Dexter Castro, who has been running a very nice race so far. I haven't seen many mistakes by this guy, and this could be another Lime Rock Park win for him, if I'm recalling right, but because I believe he won here in the Blondie Series. Is that correct, Richard?
He did indeed. That is a tragic outcome for Joao Freitas, but you know, Joao Freitas was charging so hard. We spoke too much about him because we probably put a hex on him right there, and he went into the wall on turn 1. Might be worth a replay even to have a look at that again, because he really went in there just too hot and lost it in the turn, and that's probably put the end to his challenge for first place in this race.
Well, in the meantime, James Alex Brown decided he'd had enough of the limelight, and he has hopped off into the pits and given over the lead to Patrick Bieri, who has a very fast Dan Rash right on his bumper as they're coming down the no-name straight.
Yeah, you said it, Dan, is very, very fast right now compared to Patrick Bieri, but they have the very wounded David Whammond in front of them, and he goes wide and allows them both to clear him in the uphill. So smart thinking on Dan Rash's part right there to just stay behind Patrick Bieri, not force the issue with a wounded ST car in front of them.
When there was just the slightest bit of contact coming out of 6th there as Dan just creeped up on the bumper of him, he's going to have a good opportunity going into 1. I have to say, that was very good driving from Whammond of getting out of the way from these guys at just the right time. It looks like Dan's got a good run. Is he going to peek onto the inside? Yes, he does. He tries to make the move under braking. Who's going to have it into 1 and 2? Dan's got the inside, and he already clears Patrick Bieri, so off into the lead goes Rash.
Yeah, he said there wasn't a whole lot Bieri could do there. I think those front tires are just shot compared to the to Dan Rash's. That braking point was just so much sooner, and he had to go so much deeper into turn 1 than Dan was to get the car slowed down that there wasn't much he could do. And Dan Rash is just pulling away like a freight train right now.
Well, we've only got 38 minutes left in the race, so we're getting close to actually the 2/3 mark, and that's going to be the point at which cars will have to pit at that point, because as you said, it was about 55 minutes that these guys can go. So, but I don't think that anybody actually has their pit stops left. I believe everybody's cycled through. But let's actually go through the order real quick, because we haven't yet in quite a while. And Dan Rash is leading as Patrick Bieri holds the 2nd spot. Steve Brown holding a very nice 3rd as Eric Smith, after some damage, is down to 4th, and then JD Baumgartner is in 5th. What's the top 5 in ST, Richard?
Well, Dexter Castro is actually leading the ST class. He is in 4th place overall, would you believe? Behind him, we have Joshua Leutz in 2nd place. Stefan Overgaard, with all his damage and all his trials and tribulations, has inherited, I would say, 3rd place. And James Stevenson has got back onto the lead lap, and he is now in 4th place. And they are being followed by William Randleman. And João Freitas has exited his car at this point, Joe. I think his race is done.
That's unfortunate to see, because we know he can come back from some serious setbacks, and I guess he just thought the damage was too much to overcome, and it's the end of the season, so there wasn't really much for him to fight for. But João, we really hope you're back next season, because, man, you've given us some fireworks in the few races that you've showed up here, and they were some good ones. In the meantime, I'm not trying to put a hex on Dexter Castro here, but I am very impressed with how he's been running this race, Richard.
Absolutely. There was no question from the very get-go that he was fast. And he was right up there with James Stevenson and with Stefan Overgaard. These were the top 3 qualifiers. His car is absolutely perfect at this point in time. No damage that I can see. He's raced beautifully, kept out of trouble, and is leading the race at this point in time. He looks racy, he looks fast, and he's looking good for a win here if he can keep it together for the next 30-odd minutes, Joe.
So let's also update you on who is out of the car. It looks like we have a few cars that are out. Wes Eric is gone. Jarrett Lawson has exited. David Whammond is... he's 12 laps down and he's in the pits. If he resumes on, then my salute goes to you, David, for continuing on in spite of that. Tom Eckline is still out there, but he is currently off the track. In GS class, Russell Clayson is out, and he is the only GS car that is out of this race. All 10 other cars are still in it, with Alexis Molina being 2 laps down. So a lot of attrition, which we're kind of used to attrition, though, here. That's sort of to be expected, I have to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Edvor Ras, who's a few laps down, he's still circulating. That's pretty good. Tom Eckline is circulating with damage as well. So, yeah, pretty much these guys are just now trying to finish the race. They're pretty well limping, these back markers. But back to Dexter Castro up front, guys. This guy is just driving beautifully. He didn't have enough, I believe, to challenge João Freitas if João Freitas had kept it all together. But that's the thing. João Freitas did not. And now João Freitas is out of the race and Dexter Castro is leading the race. So good on him for doing that and for racing very well. Joshua Lloyd's quite a ways back, but still in the race. His car still looks good. So those are your top two. Stefan Overgaard, I presume he's got damage. He's racing and he is doing okay. James Stevenson is behind him, but catching him by the looks of things. So James Stevenson might still finish on the podium in this race if he can catch Stefan Overgaard, Joe.
And I just want to point out that it seems like Dexter Castro seems...
William Randleman off once again. So I'm wondering what that will do to him. James Stevenson, he wasn't featuring in the top three or anything, but he just went off in turn one there and sitting on the side of the track. So another victim to the attrition of this race, Joe.
Yeah, and he's getting close to being lapped by Dexter Castro, and William is in fifth. So that means only 4 cars in the ST class on the lead lap, which we saw a similar situation 2 weeks ago at Laguna Seca. But what I was going to say is that Dexter Castro seems to be growing and evolving, because even though the caution helped him out here, he seems to be learning the strategy of this series quite well, because that pit stop that he made, 2 pit stops actually, has allowed him to be only 15 seconds behind the overall leader, and we are 35 minutes into this race. That is an impressive feat.
Okay, so we've got 1 hour gone, 30 odd minutes left. Dexter Castro did 2 pit stops. I just wonder whether they all have enough fuel to complete the race. Fuel is going to be the big thing. That change of tires on that second pit stop during the caution was a superb move, I believe. And that should win the race for him if he has enough fuel. That's going to be the big thing.
That's the $1,000,000 question, but whether or not he can pull it off. And he does have one Continental Endurance Sports Car Series win under his belt, and that was at Daytona of all places, which is another one that is a real slog and can be pretty hectic with it being the first race of the season. There's usually a lot of new faces, so maybe he's starting to learn to try and work his way through some of these more chaotic races and come out ahead. Josh Lloyd, who we were saying earlier on, is sort of a specialist here. He's had some bad breaks, I think, in this race because of the miscommunication with the marshals, but second place is not too bad, even though he's got a bit of a distance up to Dexter.
Yeah, I'm trying to see whether he is actually making up some time on Dexter. So just looking at his last lap, he did a 59.8, and Dexter Castro did a 59.9, so there's a 10th there. Not much in it. I would say that Dexter Castro could probably step up if Josh Lloyd's got close enough to challenge, which at this stage it doesn't look like it. There's a very healthy 10-second or more gap between them. But the other one that we should look at, Stefan Overgaard and James Stevenson. I believe James has been catching Stefan slowly but surely. So we'll see in a few laps' time. There's still quite a large distance, almost the length of the straight between them. But we'll see as the laps run down whether James has enough to catch Stefan or whether Stefan can stay ahead. But that's about it. As you said, only a few cars in ST left on the lead lap there, Joe.
Well, let's go over to GS real quickly, because I've been keeping half an eye on Steve Brown and Patrick Bierry to see if he's been making any ground. From what I've seen, Steve has been running, Steve has been running slightly faster laps on average than Patrick, so he's kind of gaining ground slowly, it seems, Kevin, but he's got a ways to go because there's still a gap. But, I mean, all it takes is some traffic, and maybe he could be back in this thing for a second place.
Well, you are right. Maybe all it takes is a little bit of traffic, but we're seeing Steve right now kind of getting held up a little bit by that ST car through the left-hander. So it does take some traffic you need that traffic to help, but he's got about 5 seconds to make up on Patrick Bierry. That's a lot, I think, to be honest, unless Steve gets some help right now. they're running, you know, about a half a second to almost dead exact laps. Just a couple of laps ago, I think the top 5 Mustangs all ran the same lap within about a tenth of a second of each other. So they're all pretty close. I think they've kind of settled down a little bit. Everybody's about 5 seconds away from each other. So to be honest, there's really not a whole heck of a lot going on in the Mustangs.
Yeah, it seems like people are starting to space themselves out as the race goes on here. So we're going to hop to break for a second and let themselves kind of sort themselves out, see if anything starts to develop. We're going to go off for a moment, and you can enjoy the music. We'll be back in a second. Welcome back to Lime Rock Park. We've got about a half an hour to go in this race, and it looks like our Season 4 champion, James Stevenson, is working his way back up the ladder. He just passed Stefan Overgaard for third, so he is onto the podium, Richard.
Yes, he is. He's a long way back, though, from Joshua Lloyd's in second place, so that's 20 seconds that he has to make up in 30 minutes. He's got to catch him by at least a second a lap, which is a tough ask on this short track. So I don't know that he'll make it up into second place, but certainly he's done well. I can tell you, Joe, that he's the fastest guy on track at the moment. His car is in perfect condition. no damage, as opposed to everyone else who does kind of have damage to their cars, as he's just being passed by Dan Rash. Gosh, Dan Rash is running a good race there, Kevin.
Guys, color me confused, but I don't see Dexter Castro on track.
Oh, let me see. No, you are correct. In fact, yes, you are correct. He has exited the car. We have to find out what happened there.
Yeah, I see some words from him in the text chat, and I can't Oh my goodness, I think he blew his engine. Yeah, he blew his engine going into one. I think he downshifted too much.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So we've seen attrition now, Joe Freitas just losing it in turn one, and now Dexter Castro blowing his engine. Crazy stuff. And what that does is it puts Josh Lloyds now in the first place. It puts James Stevenson in second place in this thing, and our friend Stefan Overgaard with a badly damaged car in third place. Incredible stuff.
And actually, Stefan Overgaard just overtook James, so he is back up in a second despite his early difficulties. So this one is just throwing all kinds of surprises at us. And once again, you just can't count out Josh Lloyds around this track. He seems to know it, and he seems to know how to take advantage of certain situations. If he could get back-to-back wins at this track as far as this series goes, that would be impressive. And I think definitely notify or notch himself as definitely the guy to watch out for around here. In the meantime, one of the things that we should mention is that even though James Stevenson doesn't seem quite on the pace, he is in the hunt for another championship, and that's the Mr. Clean Championship, Richard.
Oh, is that right? I did not realize that. I think he let Stefan Overgaard pass him there. Something strange going on here with the standings list, Joe. It's showing James Stevenson a lap down, whereas a lap or two ago, while we were on the break, he was showing as still being on the lead lap. So not quite sure what's going on there.
I'm not entirely sure either. I'm kind of checking to see if there's anything weird going on with the GS cars that might have caused that. I do see that Dan Rash only has about a 5-second lead ahead of Patrick Bieri at the moment with the 23 minutes left to go. But Steve Brown is still kind of bit by bit reeling Patrick in.
Yeah, well, you'll recall when we last talked, it was about 5 seconds, about 4.8. It's now currently sitting on 4.0 seconds between Steve Brown and Patrick Bieri. So it might be there. Steve needs to keep pushing a little bit. Patrick doesn't really need to push as hard as Steve needs to push. So that ball is in Patrick's favor right now. And Steve definitely needs a little bit of something bizarre to happen to Patrick Bieri right now to help him out, I think. But they just keep working at it. There might still be enough time as Steve Brown just needs to keep working at this.
Well, while we let that develop, I'm hopping back all the way to 8th and 9th in position on the GS class, and Denny Locke is very close behind Nicholas Bailey. Those two are right together, and he is just holding on right to the back of that blue and white car, Kevin.
Yeah, you said it. I'm trying to remember now, Nicholas Bailey, exactly why he had an early incident that put him to the back of the field, and he's had an okay run since then. Denny Locke also having an okay run. They're not particularly setting anything on fire, but they're running well together. I think they're having a nice little battle, so, at least they're having some fun out there, I think.
Well, unfortunately, it seems that Eric Smith has put a bucket of water on our fire of a battle here because he caught Denny Locke in the uphill, and Denny was just, I think, a little too nice and lost a lot of time. So, and now Eric Smith is going on by Nicholas on the front stretch, so Nicholas really won't lose quite nearly as much to him. But there's still something that could develop there between those two as he gains just a little bit down the front straightaway, and it seems like maybe there's all of a second or so between them.
Well, and, I was saying some bad luck needed to happen to Patrick Bieri for Steve Brown to catch him. Well, some bad luck did happen. He kind of got caught up behind Stefan Overgaard, and Steve Brown is now just sitting on 3 seconds behind him, which means that Steve can see Patrick Bieri pretty much any place on the track now, so that's going to give him extra fuel to go a little bit faster and maybe snipe that second position.
Yeah, and he's still got Stefan in front of him as Stefan goes all four off, and Stefan is right now still trying to hold on to that second position as now he finally gets by. So he was not going to want to try and just pull over and let him by as he's still fighting James Stevenson for that, although Stevenson has lost a number of seconds behind him. In the meantime, Josh Loitz seems to be just kind of holding things down here. In fact, he's got almost half the track back to Stefan Overgaard at the moment, so all he has to do is bring this thing home.
Well, I have to tell you that I got quite nervous watching him go into turn one on the previous lap. He went in really hot, and it was all that he could do to keep it together there, and I just hope that nothing happens, because he's running a great race. He was up early. Remember the start, he had a unbelievable start to take the race by the scruff of the neck on lap number one, and now he is doing it nicely. He's doing it easily. All he has to do, and we say it often, Joe, and very often it doesn't work out that way. He's got to hold it together for the rest of this race.
Well, he did it last year with the immense pressure of Stevenson on his rear. So without the pressure there, I wonder if it'll be a little bit easier, or is it tougher to stay focused? You have to wonder. In the meantime, I was watching Steve Brown, who was kind of in the midst of an interclass battle going on, because Stefan Overgaard was trying to hold back James Stevenson, and poor Steve had nowhere to go behind them. So he lost a bunch of time to Patrick Bieri from that.
Yeah, he did, about a full second completely, and Steve's got to be kicking himself right now. That may have been his only chance, but we'll see. There's still a significant amount of traffic left for him to try and make a move.
And I was hearing some words being interchanged between the marshals and someone on track, but I couldn't exactly make out what was going on. Hopefully we'll be able to get some information on that. We've got 18 minutes left on this. So it's starting to get down towards the end. Everyone's getting a little bit spaced out, but as we've seen, mistakes can happen. The unexpected can happen. We've had a blown engine even. We've lost the leader, what, I believe 3 times so far this race?
Absolutely. And now, guys, James Stevenson closed up onto the back of his teammate, Stefan Overgaard. And
Richard, I got to jump in here. There was a big wreck between Eric Smith and Ed Verras, and it's going to throw out the caution right now. And it looks like Verras got loose coming out of diving turns, spun in front of Eric Smith, caught Eric Smith, and tossed Eric Smith into the wall. And they stopped the race so that they can get Eric Smith out of the way.
Interesting. So sorry, Joe. This does throw up a whole host of possibilities, which we'll go through. I'll pass it back to you at the moment, Joe.
Yeah, you can see on the replay what happened between those two, and just unfortunate development, because I believe Eric was still in this thing for at least 4th from what I could recall. So definitely bad luck for him. And then poor Ed Verras has been having a bad race. He was already 7 laps down and just took a heck of a hit. Both of them did, really, coming out of that turn. In the meantime, this is going to play havoc for a number of things. For one, Josh Loitz now has Stefan Overgaard right behind him when that green comes back.
Well, I got to tell you, Stefan Overgaard overcooked it into turn 1 and was off track for quite a second or two there. And I was really worried that he wasn't going to hold it together. Now, he is in 2nd place. The caution came out while he was in 2nd. So, no doubt James Stevenson, who did pass him there, will have to wait for him and allow him to get back into that 2nd position. As they close up now behind the pace car, Joe. So, possibilities. Is a pit stop's going to happen? We see some GS cars going in there. I'm not seeing any ST cars going in. The next possibility, it's a caution, so that saves fuel. So those who are, they're not going green at this point. Yep, as we expect. So very interesting here, Joe. The caution will help them in many ways. They can duck into the pits and top up with fuel if they need to. And if they've got enough fuel to stay out, then the field is now closed up so they can really, really race to the end. So this is not over by any means at this point in time.
And a significant development, Steve Brown and Patrick Bieri did stop into the pits along with German Affinador. Both Steve Brown and Patrick Bieri took tires So those guys are going to be on very fresh tires at the end. They won't have track position, but you have to wonder, with the way we've seen guys really dive through, Dan Rash stayed out. How is this going to play out, Kevin?
I really like this move from Patrick and Steve. There's only a few Mustangs left in the field, so there will be fairly few cars out. And since they're the only ones that will stop, everybody else will be on ancient tires, so they should be able to move forward pretty easily. I think this is going to be really, really exciting to watch. I think this is a great idea, and I hope it can play out big time for these guys.
Well, we have the driver that unfortunately was just put out of the race by that caution, and that was Eric Smith. Eric, it seems as though this race was looking good at the start, and it started to go south. You had some contact, and now it's over.
Well, I had a lot of fun. Just two unfortunate incidents with the MX-5s. I was still hoping to at least push for a podium after the first incident, but as you saw, my car was not moving after the second one.
Well, one of the things that we're kind of hoping is you're one of the faster drivers in this series, and unfortunately real-life obligations pulled you away. With the season changing next year, will you be able to partake more and maybe try and challenge Rash and Chemo for the championship?
I hope so. I have an incredibly heavy semester next semester, so we'll see. But with the extended schedule, I'm hoping if I can get the practice in, that I can take a Saturday every now and then.
Well, we look forward to having you back next season. You've been an excellent addition to this series, and I'm sorry to see Season 4 wrap up this way for you.
Well, thank you.
All right, they are going through waiver rounds right now, trying to sort things out. Hopefully we get all the operations done correctly this time so that nobody's caught out wrong. It looks like Dan Rash does have Patrick Bieri behind him, actually. So this is, with all the wave around cars going back around, Kevin, I think this is going to be exactly like you were saying. It's going to be a slower car on fresher tires on a hot shoe with worn out tires. This is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, this is even better than I was thinking. With all the wave rounds for all the Mustangs, this worked out perfectly for Patrick Bieri and Steve Brown. With that fresh rubber and about 15 minutes to go, or no, excuse me, yeah, is it 15 or 10? Regardless, only a few minutes to go. They are looking awfully nice right now. Dan Rash is on very old tires right now. He's going to struggle to be able to put down laps as quick that Patrick Bieri and Steve Brown will be able to put down right now.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, too, is it's not just one car, but it's two cars that he's going to have to hold back because both of those guys took tires. I see that J.D. Baumgartner is back there. I can't recall if he pit or not, but I know that German Afanador did, and I have to imagine if he had any sort of smarts about strategy, he probably would have taken tires, too. So that's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. But in the meantime, on the ST side, Josh Loitz has had his lead of almost, I believe, 40 seconds, or maybe possibly 30. I can't remember exactly where it was, Richard. But regardless, James Stevenson is now going to be right on top of him.
Well, they're not going green just yet. James Stevenson, who's behind David Whammond at the moment, they've still got to catch the pack up behind the pace car. One imagines they will be able to do it. In fact, they're catching them now. But an interesting development that took place during the caution was that Stefan Overgaard ducked into the pits and looks like he just took some fuel. So we see there that David Whammond gets a wave around, so he's going to be passing. What's going on? It looks to me like Joshua Loitz is being passed by James Stevenson. So what's going on? Where's Josh? Yeah, Josh Lloyd slowing down. What's going on there, Joe?
I'm not entirely sure. I'm trying to listen to the marshals.
Josh Lloyd is saying in the chat there that everyone has to go by me. So not quite sure whether these guys are all laps down. It doesn't show that on the screen. What is going on? Another one of these confusing ends to a race here, Kevin.
Well, I don't have any idea either. I think the GS guys are just sitting there just saying, hey, let's go green. I got hot tires here. I need to go.
Yeah, well, look, James Stevenson, everybody's passing Josh Lloyd. What happened to him? Because he must have got an end of line, Joe.
That might have been the case, because it looks like James Stevenson is staying where he is. I'm not sure if it was a mistake or not by the marshals. It looks like actually there are some GS cars that are behind them. They should be going by.
Yeah, that's the only possible explanation. He must have got an end-of-line penalty for some reason, or maybe not even a penalty. Well, actually, it must be a penalty because otherwise he'd still be in first place. So that is a very, very sad development for Joshua Lloyd, who was really, really doing a great job and running away with this thing. But we did point out that anything can happen. It's not over until it's over. So here we have the leader now for the last half of the race in last place. Well, not last place, but falling back, certainly. And they're still not going green, so it's still crazy stuff going on here, Joe.
Well, we've got about 10 minutes left to go, so I think they're going to have the time to try and get this thing green before the checkered flags come out, as long as they don't give it another not going green message, because that'll be about 2 more laps each time. James Stevenson is definitely up at the front. He's got Stefan Oergaard, his teammate, behind him in second. And actually, it looks like, in spite of everything, Josh Lloyd is still in third, though, even though he's got about 4 or 5 cars between himself and Oergaard.
Yeah, well, looks like the GS cars will be given the right to pass the ST cars, so that should close up the field. So it will be a sprint to the finish with Josh Lloyd still having an opportunity. I don't like his chances now with Stefan and James Stevenson in front of him, but he's shown that he knows this track very well. He's made this a speciality, so anything can happen. It looks like we're going to have a great finish here, Joe.
Yeah, I'm hoping that this next time around we're going to go green. And I have to agree with you. I was a bit gutted to see that Josh Lloyd was not going to be up at the front, because if there's one thing about this track that's significant, it's that track position is king. It's so hard to pass. There's so few opportunities. And especially when you've got all this traffic and whatnot, it's tough. But now that there's none of that traffic to hold them back, it was going to be a straight-on fight, hopefully. But we'll have to see how things play out, as this thing is just getting down to the wire. We've got 8 minutes to go. Let's see, I believe that there should be lights off on the pace car.
Yes, lights are off.
So we should be going green, crossing our fingers and our eyes and our toes that we're going to get a green finish here as the pace car leads them around. Dan Rash holds on to first. Patrick Bierry is in second. Steve Brown is in third. JD Baumgartner in fourth, and German Afanador in fifth. Meanwhile, in ST class, as we said, Stevenson leads with Oergaard behind him in second. Josh Lloyd, who was leading most of the race, is now down to third for an end-of-line penalty, apparently. William Randleman is in fourth. And then back in fifth, we have Philip Carpenter, who I believe is trying to work his way back to the tail of the field. And I think he is a lap down as well. So we're getting close here. We are around turn 6, getting ready to head towards the diving turn. So they're going to take the green flag any moment now. This is it. Final race of the season. Final green flag of the season as the pace car heads towards the pit entrance. Dan Rash is going to lead them away. Waiting for the pace car to peel on in. There he goes. Green should be happening now. There's the green flag. Patrick Bierry seems to get a good start. He's taken a look towards the inside, but Dan has him covered off. Now he's blocked in because Steve Brown is looking on the outside. It looks like he's going to be able to take advantage. And, oh, they come together. Steve Brown is going around. Steve Brown has lost out. He's taken contact with German Afanador, and another car goes off behind him. So there goes Steve Brown's chance.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Kind of saw that one coming. I think those tires were a little cold, and that has put paid chances to Steve Brown's race right now. Patrick Bierry still has a little bit something left, but he's got to make up on this gap that Dan Rash has opened up very quickly.
Yeah, he can't lose sight at this point. And I'm curious, was that cooldown time, because that was a long yellow for this course, was that cooldown time enough for Dan Rash's tires to get back to temperature?
I don't know. I have never been in a full course yellow that long, to be honest, so, especially on tires that were that worn. But it looks like Bieri's running a little bit better right now. He got a nice strong exit out of diving turn, so it could be enough. He might still have a chance here for Dan Rash, but he has absolutely got to buckle down with only about 5 minutes left in this race,
which is going to equal roughly 5 laps. And I do notice that somewhere along the line, Stefan Overgaard made a mistake, and Josh Loitz, Richard, has moved himself back up into second.
Yeah, well, I can update you on that. I was watching the start of the ST field. Joshua Lloyds did another start just as he did right at the beginning and made he blitzed. He had Ed Voras in front of him. He blitzed past him before the start-finish line. He came up on Stefan Overgaard into turn number 1, did tap him, and that is what caused Stefan Overgaard to have to correct, and he didn't go off track, but he certainly lost the position there to Josh Lloyd, so perhaps a little bit reckless from Josh there. Josh is now trying to hunt down James Stevenson, but guess what? James Stevenson has responded to the challenge. There's only a few laps left. Now, Josh Lloyd's James Stevenson, does he have enough to catch him? I don't think so. James Stevenson loves to lead from the front. So just to recap before we go back, Dexter Castro was leading this race. He's out. João Freitas was leading this race. He's out. Josh Lloyd was leading this race. He's now in second place. Stefan Overgaard qualified fastest. He's in third place. This race has coughed up a whole lot of surprises, Joe.
Yeah, and just to make it even more confusing, I see that Josh Loitz was saying that he got a black flag at the restart from what I'm seeing. So he might have to get that cleared if I'm reading that right. In the meantime, I'm watching Patrick Bieri, who is getting very close to Dan Rash, but he lost a little time coming through turn 6, and he's just trying his heart out to run down Dan Rash.
Yeah, you said it, Joe. He is pushing hard. Last time by, he was about a quarter second behind Dan Rash. Now that gap's been opened up to about 0.6 of a second, maybe 3/4 of a second. These guys are pushing hard right now. Dan Rash got super loose last time by on the uphill. They are pushing hard. Not to repeat myself too many times, but you can see that Patrick wants this, but does he have enough with just only a couple minutes left?
Closing up through these slow S's, now onto the no-name straight. We've got 3.5 minutes to go until this thing wraps up the season. Dan Rash wants to finish on a high note. He wants to finish ahead of Patrick Bieri and hold on to that second place on through the uphill. Patrick Bieri is trying to get up to that car, but it looks like he just can't get the pace to get up to him, it seems like.
Yeah, he is pushing hard. We saw both of these guys get very loose over the uphill. Bieri, I thought, might have almost gone around there. He was that close, but he's gotten a good run out of diving turn. He's a little bit closer than he was last time by. He's not close enough to make a move right now, but he's close enough to get a good shot and set himself up maybe for the next lap, which might be the penultimate lap.
Yeah, we've got a little more than 2 minutes to go here, and he seems to be very good about closing up in these slower portions, but it's on the long, fast turns that he starts to drop through turns like 6 and 7. But right now he's trying once again to just keep that gap together, and he loses a bit of time coming out of 4. Let's see if he can do anything in the uphill as they go through there. This fast right-hander, he does decently, puts a couple wheels off into the dirt, but no harm done there. On into 6, he closes up under braking, trying to make something of this gap. It looks like he's able to do a little bit there. He's going to have to do just a little bit more coming through the final turn, and it looks like he's not able to do it. Are we going to get the white flag this time by? I don't believe so. It looks like we might have 2 more laps to go yet still, Kevin.
Yeah, I think you said it earlier that maybe that long cooldown period helped Dan Rash's tires out. I think that's right, because he's able to just kind of put a little bit more of a lead on Patrick Bieri. Patrick may have had his chance and may not have been able to do anything with it. It's about 0.8 of a second right now. Patrick's a little bit closer here, but this is where he needs to get a good run out of turn 4 on a no-name straight, get a good run out of the uphill, and then that will set you up for a chance onto the main straight leading into Big Bend. But Patrick's pretty far away right now. I don't think he's got a chance for it.
Meanwhile, let's hop back to ST, because James Stevenson did have Joshua Loitz quite close, but unfortunately, the James Alex Brown and the GS class has gotten between them, and he seems to be causing havoc in this fight as James actually goes off, but comes back onto the track, no harm, no foul. And poor Josh is trying to get past this Mustang because he seems to be very close in pace, and he's being held up, and he's losing contact quickly, Richard.
Yeah, and in fact, James was held up by Denny Locke earlier on in the previous lap, and he fought to get by him. Denny Locke actually gave an opportunity on the front straight for both Joshua Lloyds and James Stevenson to pass. And then James Alex Brown suddenly got in the mix there and overtook Lloyds. And that's now put the cat amongst the pigeons, so to speak, because as long as that guy stays between them, Joshua Lloyds really doesn't have an opportunity to do battle with James Stevenson. And with so few laps left, this was just not great driving from James Alex Brown right there.
Well, we're going to hop back to GS because we might be on the checkered flag here.
Checkers are out.
Yes, checkers are out, and it looks like Dan Rash is going to win the finale with Patrick Bieri following him home for second, and JD Baumgartner completes the podium in GS. Meanwhile, in ST, we've got James Stevenson looking to wrap this thing up, Richard.
Yes, unfortunately for Joshua Lloyds there, that hold-up meant that James Stevenson got away with a win here. A lucky win, I would say, for James. Joshua Lloyds did get second place. He got really wide in that last turn and nearly binned it right at the end there, but managed to hold it together and finishes in second place. And Stefan Overgaard completed the podium. He's still coming around. No, these guys are finished now. So third place for Stefan at this point.
Yeah, we've seen our podium finishers in each class complete the line. And yeah, that was a disappointing end to what was a thrilling race in the ST class, but definitely a pressure cooker in both of them all the way to the end. But we're going to go to break and then come back with the results. We'll hopefully have some interviews on the other side and enjoy the music until then. Welcome back to Lime Rock Park. We just witnessed the final round in the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series, and it was a thriller right to the end. Good finish to the season. But after all is said and done, Dan Rash took the win at Lime Rock Park, while Patrick Bieri finished second. J.D. Baumgartner took third. James Alex Brown had a well-earned fourth. Denny Locke came in fifth. German Afanador was sixth. Alexis Molina was seventh. Steve Brown, after his contact, unfortunately finished in eighth. Eric Smith was ninth. Nicholas Bailey in 10th. Russell Clayson was 11th. And then Fernando Fireball did not start. What was the ST finishers like, Richard?
Well, James Stevenson got away with a first place. Joshua Leutz in second. Stefan Overgaard came in third place. William Randleman in fourth. Philip Carpenter in fifth place. Ed Voras in sixth place. Tom Eckline in seventh place, although 8 laps down. And then we had a bunch of guys who were way down. In 8th place, David Wamman. Dexter Castro did not finish in 9th. Yao Freitas did not finish in 10th. Jarrett Lawson, an early departure in 11th. And finally, the organizer, Wes Eric, a full 80 laps down in 12th place, Joe.
Well, we have our winners actually waiting to talk to us, including the overall winner of Dan Rash. And it seems like even though he didn't take the championship, he ended on a good note with 2 wins in a row. Dan, this one seemed to be in question all the way to the end. Were you worried with your worn tires that maybe Patrick had something for you?
I don't know how different Patrick's strategy was, so I'm not sure how much fresher his tires were, but I felt pretty confident the track. I've done a lot of laps here, both in this car and others, so I felt pretty confident. And Chemo's one of the biggest challengers, and unfortunately he wasn't able to make it to this race, so that gave a little bit of a load off.
So are you saying that you weren't aware that Patrick had pitted under that last caution then?
I wasn't paying too much attention to what he had done. I was kind of zoning out under the yellow, to be honest.
I don't blame you. Yeah, actually, Patrick had pitted under the caution. We were kind of anxiously watching that because he was on fresher tires than you. But it was very close all the way to the end. There wasn't much more than a second between you guys. You've got one championship under your belt, and it seems like, are you looking to come back next year? And do you think you have something for Chemo?
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in coming back, and Chemo's getting better and better while I'm closer to stagnating, so we'll see how it goes. I imagine he's going to be even more dominant next season, so I'll have to step it up to keep up.
Would you consider this year a learning season with all the troubles that you had that kind of knocked you back?
Oh my goodness, yeah. Learn how to overclock a computer so it doesn't crash in the middle of the race. Learn to double check your fuel amount, and then most importantly, learn how to deal with traffic. That was definitely my biggest weakness, and I'm still not the greatest at it, but I'm getting better at least. Clearly in this race, I started out with an objective to just get 0 incidents, and unfortunately that didn't go so well. As you might have seen in one lap on the last corner, I squeezed David Whammond a little bit too tight and didn't give him as much room as I should have, unfortunately, and that caused a little bit of a nudge that sent him off track and ruined his race, so I'm not too happy with that. But, learning from experience, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, and that's kind of the name of the game in mixed class endurance racing. Well, we're glad to see you go out on a win, and thanks for talking to us.
Yeah, thanks for the broadcast, guys. I appreciate all the great content you've put out this season, and I look forward to racing and broadcasting with you guys in the future.
Awesome stuff. We also have Steve Brown, who was in contention for the win as well, all the way towards the end, and I believe Kevin's going to talk to him.
Steve, that was a heart-wrenching finish for you. Tell us about that contact in turn 1. What happened there from your point of view?
Oh, from where I was sitting, it just looked like Patrick missed his braking point and slid into me, and ended my race. I don't really understand how. 1, how you can do that, but 2, how he can go on with 0 damage, and I have 4 minutes worth of repairs.
Well, yeah, that was definitely a bummer to an end there. Were you thinking ahead of time to get get new tires for full course yellow, or did you just follow Patrick in on that last yellow?
Well, I wasn't too sure coming to the pits there. I was watching him. I actually didn't think he was going to go. I thought he was bluffing. And then I saw that if I went in, it looked like the only person who was going to get by me was German, who I had better pace with anyway. So with new tires, I should have been able to get by him no problem if he ended up in front of me. But he pit as well, so we ended up coming out 2 and 3 anyway. And I think if we had more time, that yellow took way too long. I think both of us, me and Patrick, could have at least gotten by Dan and fought out for the win.
It was an up and down season for you. So tell us, do you think it was more up or more down this season?
Definitely more down. I honestly think there was probably only 1 or 2 races where we had a good result, especially with the huge penalty you get now for incidents. I think I did pretty well during my championship season to cut those out, and the last 2 seasons here, they've kind of gone back up, so we got to cut that out for next season.
All right, well, good luck next season, Steve.
All right, thanks, guys. Thanks for all the broadcasts, and have a good holiday. We'll see you next year.
Well, we also have our ST winner waiting, and for him it was definitely a good season, and I believe Richard is going to have a few questions with James.
Yeah, hi James. A good win today, somewhat unexpected, would you say?
Yeah, I only went out there today to keep the car on the track and just keep it straight, and if anyone come up behind me I was going to let them straight by, but after I let them by they all fell off the track and I ended up back in first.
Yeah, I actually saw that from the beginning, James, that you weren't pushing that hard at all and you were keeping your car nice and clean and keeping your car whole, which is very difficult to do on this track. And in the end, it all fell into place for you. Joshua Lloyd's got a black flag. We're not quite sure what happened there. But, you know, a win is a win, as we say in racing. And you've done it again. You've got the championship. You've got the win in the last race. You must be pretty pleased.
Yeah, and today, keeping it clean's also managed to secure the Mr. Clean Championship, so I'm pretty happy about that.
Oh, excellent. We didn't realize it, although Joe did mention that you are in the hunt for Mr. Clean. So a clean sweep is what we could say there.
Yeah, I think it's important to show people that in order to go fast, they can do it clean as well.
Yeah, absolutely. James, a great season for you. Is there anything that you are unhappy about in this season?
Oh, there's things in just about every race. I mean, in this race, that first caution there, they started to give us the end-of-line penalties right as the green flag went, so a couple of us were caught very much napping because we were waiting for Mustangs to come past and half the ST field came past instead.
Yeah, that is pretty confusing. I must tell you that we in the booth here are just as confused as you guys out there when these things are happening. So, you know, what would you suggest to improve things? Because certainly it does confuse everybody.
I think the marshals were just a little bit caught out by the short lap time, and they didn't renew the caution early enough, so they were caught out a little bit.
Yeah. All right, my friend. Look, a great season from you, a great win here today. Any last words, thoughts on the season, on the race? We're always interested to hear your thoughts.
Oh, well, I think despite losing our leader here at Asbury Motorsports, we've had a very good season. I think we finished first and second in the championship, and I think, well, Stefan was right up there in the Mr. Clean, but I don't think he is after this race, but we've taken that out as well, which has always been something that Stephen has gone for in the team, and that's what we've achieved.
Yeah, you guys are a great team. You've done a great job. I'm proud to say that I am a non-participating member of this team at the moment, and hopefully I will get back into it next season. Thank you for talking to us, James. You are always a pleasure to watch on any track and always hard to beat. So congratulations once again, and back to you, Joe.
We also have their second place finisher in the ST, and that is Josh Leutz. And that was a bit hard to watch because it seemed like you had that thing wrapped up towards before that last caution. Josh, what exactly happened that sent you to the end of the line?
Well, it was just mental error on my part. I knew. I mean, I was playing the whole time before the caution to top off the fuel just a little bit, and I saw that I had a 20-second gap, and I knew beforehand that I had a pretty good shot of staying in the lead. And the caution came out, and right away I told myself I gotta pit, I gotta pit, I gotta pit. And I went in, topped off, and I came out, and then I realized that the pits weren't open yet because I was ahead of the pace car. I was ahead of Dan when the caution came out, very tail end of the field. And yeah, pretty much what happened. I was lucky to even just be only one car behind James and Stefan. So, but it was a really good race, and I mean, I had plenty of opportunities, but that's kind of what sunk it for me right there.
That is just unfortunate. We've been talking for most of this broadcast how you're sort of a Lime Rock Park specialist, and it seems like you always seem to come out to the front at this race.
Well, I certainly showed that at the start of the race. I guess that was probably the best start I've ever had on iRacing, and you know, I had no practice beforehand whatsoever, but I knew just going. I was at a party, but I knew going in, I was like, you know what, Slime Rock, I've raced here a bunch, got to win here last season. You know, I'm not too worried, and just mowed my way to the front. And I knew I didn't have the pace at the start, but once I got comfortable, I was right back to my standard that I hold myself to.
Well, I know it was a bit of a frustrating season for you at times. We're hopeful that you're going to be back for next season and maybe even challenging James a bit.
Yeah, you know, I certainly learned a lot this season. I made plenty of mistakes, you know, with mental or driving errors, and you know, that's just developing as a driver. Whether it's real or sim racing, you know, developing my skills, and I'm definitely looking forward to next season, and definitely looking to challenge for the championship as well.
All right. Well, thanks for talking to us, and good luck next season.
Yeah, thank you very much. And just really quick, I want to thank all you guys at GSRC for making just excellent broadcasts. I'm going to keep them in my memories for a long time. Thanks to the marshals, even if there's a little hiccup today, they've been doing a great job all season, and glad to hopefully see them again next season. And especially Wes for putting this all together. It's such a great league. This is what I signed up to iRacing for. Exactly what I had hoped for, and I look forward to it every time I'm able to come.
And speaking of Wes Eric, we also have him here. Wes, it's been the 4th season now wrapped up for the CESCS. Did you ever think that this thing would get this large and be this long?
You know, I hoped it would, but I had no idea when I started this thing. You know, I rolled the dice and thought we might end up with a handful of guys who wanted to race. You never knew, but I am so glad that people enjoy it, people have liked it, you know, that people have taken an interest to it and watching our broadcasts, and people are coming out, you know, trying to sign up and join us and participate on the forums. And so, yeah, I'm thrilled with the success we've had, but I want to keep that going to bigger and better things in the future.
And with the future coming up a few months from now, what do you have to say for potential people who could be interested in joining?
Well, so for people who are watching who aren't league members and may not know in the discussions we've had, we are changing over to just one race season per calendar year starting next year. Since we're, again, following the now Tudor Continental Endurance, or the Continental Tire Sports Car Challenge schedule. So it's a 12-race schedule. So we'll be having a little bit bigger of a gap between races. We'll go about 3 to 4 weeks in between races to extend it out throughout the entire calendar year. Hopefully that'll give people, you know, more chance to practice, more time home with family, with work, school, whatever, so we can get a little bit better participation on race days, put a little bit more importance on those race days. And then also because of that, we're extending the races from 1.5 hours up to 2 hours. So as we're bumping up, eventually whenever we finally do get driver swaps, obviously we'll implement that. We've been waiting on that for 2 years or more. But so once we do that, we'll go to the full 2.5. But for now, starting next year, we're bumping up to 2 hours, and that'll provide a little bit more strategy play for pit stops and fuel strategies and tire strategies. So yeah, just really looking forward to it. Hopefully we'll get some bigger fields, more people can attend more often, a little bit longer races with more strategy. So just lots more fun for you guys to call on the broadcasts, right?
Absolutely. We like it when things get mixed up, especially like today. And again, thank you for putting this league on. It's been fantastic both to race in and commentate on. And we look forward to next season. But before we go, we actually want to ask for some comments from Richard and Kevin. It's been a long season, guys. Kevin, what'd you think of this one?
Well, it was a fun season to cover, and I was absolutely stunned by the pace of Kimmo Suominen, who showed up and against a bunch of experienced endurance drivers and showed them how to drive this Mustang. That's an absolutely championship drive that he put on, and well done.
Richard, what'd you think on the ST side of things?
Well, at the beginning of the season, first of all, let me thank you, Wes. A great series, and been a wonderful pleasure to be able to call the races in this series. As far as the actual drivers in ST, at the beginning of the season, I thought, who would there be to challenge James Stevenson? Well, the news for next season is really great. A number of drivers have shown that they have the pace to challenge. Dexter Castro is one that comes to mind. Certainly, Jao Freitas has got the speed. Stefan Overgaard, his teammate, is certainly in there. Joshua Lloyds, and who knows who else might join the series between now and the start of the next season. Where's just a little bit of a pointer for you, if you like. There's some really great drivers over at Blondies. You need to try and get some of them to come into this series as well, because that'll be an easy a bunch of challenges there for James and Stefan and the other guys. But Joe, a great series, certainly a great broadcast that we've been able to bring to the viewers because of the wonderful drivers that we have in here. A question for you, Wes, before I quit here. Any thoughts on any other cars, or are you going to stick with the Mustangs and the MX-5s?
So the official league statement is we're sticking with the Mustang and the MX-5, but we are always certainly trying to expand. I know we've tossed around the idea of the Jetta and the Solstice in ST. We've tossed around the fruitless idea of the RUF and the NGS. I don't think we can certainly slow that down enough. But depending on the cars that iRacing provides, and if we can balance them, that is definitely something that I want to implement in this league. So for now, we're probably sticking GS and ST, but that's definitely something in the future and hopefully soon that we can accomplish.
Okay. Well, thank you, Wes. Great series, as I said. Not too much more to be said, Joe, so back to you.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's the end of the season, but before we go, we want to thank some people. Obviously, thanks to Safecraft Racing, the sponsor of the Continental Endurance Sports Car Series. They do a lot for real-world drivers, making safety gear for motorsports, keeping people's noggins on their heads, and we can't thank them enough for that. Thanks to Wes Eric once again for all he's done to put on this league. Also, thank you to the software and hardware that we use, iRacing.com, XSplit, Twitch TV, Audio-Technica, and AverMedia. Also, thanks to the team today, Kevin, Richard, Giancarlo. Also, special thank you to Mario Beaudry, who helped us out with spotting. And if you'd like to find out more about GSRC, you can find it at www.globalsimracingchannel.com, along with archived races and race highlights. We're also on Twitter at GSR Channel and Facebook at facebook.com/globalsimracingchannel. A special thank you goes out to Eric Ekholm, who provides us with much of our music. You can find it not only here on GSRC, but in TV commercials, movie trailers, iTunes, and Spotify. If you like our music, tell Eric where you heard it at ericekholm.com. Also, a special thank you to Casey Lalonde, who provides us with music for our highlight videos and provided music today during our commercial breaks. If you'd like to find that track, you can find it at caseylalonde.bandcamp.com. That one that you heard during the breaks was called Heartfelts. That's just released this week, so that's one worth checking out. Our next race for the CESCS is going to be at Daytona, and that is February 22nd. That'll start at 6 p.m. Eastern, Season 5. Don't miss it. There's going to be a lot of changes, and it's going to be awesome. We also have another series starting in January. That'll be Blondies. That'll kick off on the 11th, and that starts at 2 p.m. Eastern. And the big one that we can't forget, a new series that we are going to be broadcasting, the Enduro Pro Series. That will be at Suzuka, and that starts January 18th at 10 a.m. Eastern. That is a brand new series that we're going to be broadcasting. Looking forward to that one. But until next time, race clean, race hard, and I'll see you on the track in 2014.